lecture we'll talk about academic essays. You'll learn the important parts of an essay and the different types of essay. An essay is a piece of writing that is focused around only one topic. Essays have several paragraphs that help to develop the topic. Let's look at the different parts of an essay. There is a title that tells you what the essay is going to be about. The first paragraph of the essay will be the introduction. The introduction might have some background information or other general statements about the topic. The most important part of the introduction is the thesis statement, which comes at the end of the introduction. Then there are body paragraphs, and each essay needs at least 2 body paragraphs. This essay has 3 body paragraphs, and you can have as many as you need. The body paragraphs help to develop the thesis statement. That means they give reasons and examples that help you prove the thesis statement. The last paragraph in the essay is the conclusion, and a conclusion wraps up the essay. You might summarize your main points or restate your thesis. And your essay needs to have all of these parts to be complete. Here's a look at essay structure. Again, we see that the thesis statement is in the introduction. That tells the reader the point that you're trying to make in the essay. And each body paragraph is a supporting topic for that thesis statement. The first body paragraph will be your first support of the thesis, so it relates directly to the thesis statement. The second body paragraph gives your second support or reason, and it supports the thesis statement as well. This is an important thing to check in your essay. If the body paragraphs are not related to the thesis statement, then they don't belong in the essay, or maybe you need to go back and fix your thesis statement. Here are some of the types of essays that use the structure we've talked about. Illustration is a kind of essay that supports a thesis using examples. Illustrate means to show, so this kind of essay shows the reader something through examples. Argument is a kind of essay that proves a point by giving reasons, so each body paragraph will give another reason to support the thesis. Classification divides the topic into categories, and each body paragraph will be a separate category in these kinds of essays. Compare and contrast is a type of essay that shows the similarities between two things or the differences between two things. And in this type of essay, the body paragraphs will be about the similarities or the differences. And finally, cause and effect will describe the causes or the effects of something. These essays all use the 5-paragraph structure we've looked at. They have an introduction, several body paragraphs and a conclusion paragraph. These are the types of academic essays you will most likely be asked to write in schools in the United States. There are several other types that are a little bit different, and I'll talk about those in a few minutes. Here are a few other things to remember when you write your academic essay. All of the essay types we've mentioned so far use third-person pronouns. Third-person pronouns refer to other people, like he, she, they, him, her, and so on. Other people means not I and not you. I and you are first and second-person pronouns, and they are not appropriate for writing an essay, not even an argument essay that gives your opinion. So do not use I, we, my, our, you, your, and so on in your essay writing. Next, you want to be sure to cite your sources. This means that if you use words that are not your own, maybe you got them from the internet or from a book or magazine. If they're not your own words, you need to put them in quotation marks and give the name of the person who wrote them originally. This is very important when writing an essay that you will turn in or give to someone else. You cannot use other people's words and pretend that they are your own. Grammar. Of course, you probably know that you need to use correct grammar and punctuation in your essay. If you have mistakes, the reader will not want to read your writing. And finally, make sure that you use the correct format for the essay. This will depend on what your teacher wants you to do. If the teacher says it's okay to handwrite your essay without a computer, then make sure you use notebook-sized paper and write neatly. If your teacher wants you to type it, make sure you use printer paper and have enough ink in the printer to make a clean copy. You are responsible for making sure the printed essay looks good on paper. And in some high-level classes, the teacher will probably require you to use MLA or APA format. These are style guides for printing your paper. Usually MLA and APA require you to have particular kind of heading, and it'll have page numbers, and you'll also have to double space the lines and use a 12-point font. Always ask your teacher which format he or she wants you to use. There are a few other types of essays that you might be asked to write, and they are different from the ones that we've talked about so far. These essays use different structures. A description essay describes a place or an event. A narration essay tells a story about something that happened. A process essay tells how something happens, or it tells the reader how to do something. And a definition essay does what it sounds like. It defines something, but there's a special way to define something with an essay. These essays have some different rules that apply to them, and you will learn about those at another time. Let's review what we've learned. Academic essays must have an introduction with a thesis statement. The essay needs to have several good body paragraphs that support that thesis. And the essay should end with a short conclusion paragraph that either summarizes the main points or restates the thesis statement. Remember not to use first or second person pronouns. Don't use I or me or you or we. Instead, use third person pronouns like he, she, or they. Also, remember to use quotation marks around any words that are not your own, and you need to say where you got those words from. Remember to use the format that your teacher tells you to use. And finally, there are several different types of academic essays that you might be asked to write. Argument and illustration are probably the most common of the academic essays. This is a lesson about writing introductions to essays. You will learn about hooks, the funnel method, and thesis statements. You probably know that a hook is used to catch a fish. We also use hooks to start our essays in an interesting way. A hook attracts the reader's attention and creates interest. We do this because we want to make the reader continue reading our essay. We can use a surprising statement as our hook. For example, some people may not realize that McDonald's hamburgers can last for many years without rotting. This is something that many people don't know about McDonald's food, and it may be a good way to attract attention to an essay about the dangers of eating fast food. You can also use an interesting question as your hook. This is okay to use occasionally, but you should not use questions very often in your essays. Questions make the writer look like he doesn't know what he's talking about, or sound like he is wasting time. Get to your point, rather than asking rhetorical questions. That said, a very interesting question that attracts your reader's attention can be used as a hook. Quotations can also be used as hooks, but again there's a warning. Don't use quotes that everyone knows. They're not interesting to your reader. If you decide to use a quote, make sure it is relevant to your essay and spend some time finding a quote that the reader may not have heard before and would enjoy reading now. You can also use a statistic to start your introduction, but again, there's a warning. Statistics can be boring. And remember, the hook is supposed to be interesting enough to make your reader want to continue reading your essay. So don't use too many statistics. Don't use hard to understand statistics, and don't use common statistics that everyone knows. All types of hooks have to be interesting or they won't be effective. This red thing is a funnel, and it's used to put oil in your car, or in your kitchen you might use it to pour liquid into a bottle. We can think of a funnel as a format for our introduction paragraph. The top of the funnel is wide. This is where we put the most general statements. If you're starting with a hook, it should be the first sentence. This is considered general because it isn't really what the essay is about. After your hook, you need to get more specific. You narrow the topic from that hook to something closer to your actual essay topic. Then finally, you end the introduction paragraph with the thesis statement. The thesis statement is specific and it has a topic and a controlling idea. We'll talk about that in just a minute. At this point, your reader should know what your essay is going to be about. Your whole introduction for a 5 or 6 paragraph essay should be only 3 to 5 sentences. If it's over 6 sentences, you're probably not writing a very organized introduction. Start with one general statement or hook, then get more specific and more specific until finally you arrive at the thesis statement, which is the most specific sentence in the introduction. Here are 4 sentences that make up an introductory paragraph. They're not in the correct order. Pause the video and write the sentences in the correct order on a piece of paper. Remember to use the funnel method and go from general to specific. Stop the video now and write the paragraph. Here is one way to write the introductory paragraph. The first 2 sentences are an anecdote. Then there is a general statement about high crime neighborhoods. Then there is a more specific sentence telling why this kind of crime happens. Finally, there's an argument for more police to fight crime. The last sentence is very specific, telling us where this issue is, Newton, and we find out what is needed and why. This is very specific. This sentence at the end of our introduction is called the thesis statement. A thesis statement needs 2 things, the topic and the controlling idea. If you're missing one of these things, then your thesis statement is not going to be very good. So what is the topic? A topic is the subject or the thing that you are talking about. The controlling idea is what you want to say about the topic. It's where your argument is. This is the thing you're going to prove or you're going to show in your essay. The topic and the controlling idea should be as specific as possible. Here are some things that you want to avoid when writing your thesis statement. Don't announce your thesis. That is, don't say, I will talk about this, or this essay is about. Also, don't write a fact for a thesis statement. Your thesis should be arguable, and facts aren't arguable. Your thesis might be your opinion, but it should not be an obvious or popular opinion. If most people agree with you, then there's no reason to write your essay. You need to say something fresh. So choose a thesis that you will have to convince the reader of. Another thing you don't want to do is use pronouns in your thesis. The reason for this is that you need to be specific and say what you're talking about in the thesis statement. Don't assume your reader knows what you're going to talk about. And finally, Don't forget the two parts, the topic and the controlling idea. Let's take a look at some examples of good thesis statements. Take a moment to read them. The first one tells us that the topic is Iceland, and the controlling idea is that it's a perfect place to take a vacation. The second thesis statement has the topic eating a vegetarian diet, and the controlling idea is it improves health and extends life. So we know what the essay is going to explain. We know what it's going to be about. It's going to explain how a vegetarian diet improves health and extends life. In the third thesis statement, we learn that the essay is about government and that the essay will argue that the government should provide health care to all its citizens. We know this because the thesis statement has a topic and a controlling idea. Here are some thesis statements that are not good. What do you think's wrong with the first one? Well, what is the topic? We don't know because the sentence uses the pronoun it several times. What is it? Probably the student talked about the topic earlier in the introduction and then used pronouns in the thesis statement. This is correct grammar, but it's not good writing. The thesis statement must have the topic and the controlling idea specifically stated. Look at the second sentence. I will give is an announcement. Remember, we don't want to announce our topic. That's elementary. What's wrong with the next thesis? It has a topic, stop smoking, and a controlling idea, because it's dangerous, and a bad habit. But this is what we would call an obvious opinion. Few people think smoking is a good idea anymore. More people are aware it's dangerous, so this is not a good thesis statement. And finally, the last one is not a good thesis statement either because it doesn't have a controlling idea. Important is not a controlling idea because it's too vague. Important can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Also, this sentence doesn't give any context to the statement. Saving money is important for whom or for what purpose? We don't know because there's no controlling idea. So now you know some ways of how to write your introduction paragraph. You can use one of the hooks, like a surprising statement or an anecdote. The funnel method is a good way to organize your introduction. Each sentence should get more and more specific as you get to your thesis statement at the end. And remember that a good thesis statement must have two parts, the topic and the controlling idea. With lots of practice, writing introduction paragraphs will get easier for you. In this lecture, we're going to talk about body paragraphs. These are some of the types of academic essays that you'll write in a college class. Illustration gives examples to show something. Argument gives reasons to argue a position. Classification describes types of something. Compare and contrast give either similarities or differences between things. And cause and effect gives either the causes or the effects of something. These 5 types of essays follow similar structures, and that includes the structure of the body paragraphs. The body paragraphs in those types of essays will all have this structure. They'll start with a topic sentence, and then they should have between 2 and 4 supporting ideas. Here you see 3 supporting ideas, and that's rather standard. And then you'll have a couple of details or examples for each of the supporting ideas. And then you'll end each body paragraph with a conclusion sentence or a transition sentence that helps the paragraph flow to the next paragraph. Each supporting idea supports the topic sentence, so it has to relate back to that idea. Each detail and example have to support the supporting ideas and the details. The examples are the most specific sentences in the paragraph. The purpose of the supporting ideas is to show what you mean by the topic sentence, and the purpose of the details is to show what you mean by the supports. That's why it gets more and more specific as you go, because you're showing the reader more specifically what you're trying to say. The topic sentences in your body paragraph should have two parts, the topic and the controlling idea. That should sound familiar to you because that's also what the thesis statement has. A topic sentence is similar to a thesis, but the topic sentence controls just that paragraph. Each topic sentence also must support the thesis statement